So we have several career awardees with us today. We have Sonia Hajduk from Computer Science, Christopher Holmes from Earth, Ocean, Atmospheric Science. We have Yan Hu and Christian Bleiholder tag teaming from Chemistry, Biochemistry. I think one is going to be here for the first part and one for the second. Lama Jabber from Education and Hadi Mohammedagushki from Chemical and Biomedical Engineering. I'm so happy you all could join us and that it allows us to have representation from all over campus because, as we mentioned, career expands all directorates of NSF. And we haven't always been lucky. We end up with, a lot of engineering people, but this time we were lucky to get folks from so many different areas. So I appreciate all of you being here. I'm gonna hit you with a few questions and let you take turns answering these questions. And as we're going along, again, I hope that those people that are here listening start putting questions into the chat, and I will bring those up as we go along. So if you would, and we're going to do this in alphabetical order just to keep this straight, which puts Sonia first, then Chris, then Yan, then Lama, then Hadi. So please introduce yourselves, letting us know your name. Well, I've already given that. When you received your career award and from what directorate, so people understand where you're coming from.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sonia Hajduk. I'm an associate professor now in computer science. I received my career award in 2019, and the directorate was the SAIS.
I'm a professor in Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Science. I received the career award I applied in 2018. And I got that from the Atmospheric and Geoscience section.
Hi, this is Yan. I'm from the Chemistry and Biochemistry department. I received my career in 2019 in the Directorate of Division of Materials Research, specifically ceramics. And my colleague, Professor Christian Bleiholder, will join us at 4 o'clock. And he received his career in 2017 and in the Directorate of Chemistry. So although we are both from chemistry department, that we received awards from different divisions, so he may have a different perspective to share.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lama Jabber. Thank you for the invitation. I received my career award in 2019 from the Directorate of Education and Human Resources, EHR. And I'm currently an assistant professor in science education in the School of Teacher Education.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hadi Mohammedagushki, and I think, Beth, you actually did an amazing job pronouncing my name. Everybody struggles a lot with it. I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Chemical and Biomedical Engineering. I joined the college in 2016, and I received my career award from Engineering Director at 2020, which is the last year.
Thank you all for being here. So some of you may have received your award on the first time you applied. Some of you may have taken more than one time, which is very normal. I'm curious, for those who did not get it their first time, what did you learn between your first submission and your submission that ended up getting funded? What was the change? We'll start again with Sonia and work our way through.
I got my proposal awarded the second time I applied. So the change, I guess, between the first and the second time was, well, first of all, I had a very good discussion and very insightful discussion with the program director, which kind of put me on the right path. And I think that was really, really important in me addressing the issues that were at the core of my proposal not being funded. And well, this was one thing that helped, and I'm going to talk in a little bit about what changed in the proposal. The second thing that I did different the second time I applied, I actually attended also the NSF, the NSF size, like computer information system and engineering workshop on writing the career proposal, which again was particularly helpful because it focused on the directorate that I was applying to and gave specific advice for writing proposals for that directorate. And then what was different between my first proposal and the second time I applied was the fact that I better explained the importance of the problem. And I feel like the first time that I applied, I was focusing too much on the technical aspect and kind of missed to make the point enough about why this is important in the grand scheme of things and how does it place my proposal in the field. And I think that the second time I made a much stronger case about the problem. I explained the problem better, why this is important and the impact that it would have. And in the technical part, I still tried to explain the best that I could, but even if I, had parts that were, maybe found not to be as clear as everybody would want them to be, that paled in comparison to making the case of why this is important to study. So that's pretty much the summary of what the difference was. And the program director was very helpful in making me realize that that this was the case, that I didn't make the case for my proposal.
Chris, did you have more than one go?
Yeah, so my career proposal was funded on the first time I submitted to the career program, but I had previously submitted the proposal in a very different form to a different agency. And it had been declined because they weren't convinced that, or the reviewers, said that they had some doubts over whether my method would work. So the main difference was I published a paper showing the methods worked. And so I had a significant amount of preliminary data, I think, that helped.
I have quite a few fun episodes to share with you guys. So my career proposal was awarded on the third time I submitted. There were quite a few reasons deduced from my colleagues and my own experience. So I got funded on my regular NSF proposal the first time I submitted, basically the first year as an assistant professor. And my senior colleagues told me that might be a big mistake because if you get funded on the regular proposal, you're unlikely, you have a reduced chance of getting a career proposal. It's a myth, and it may not be correct, but many people perceive it that way. And then certainly some of the program directors in DMR says that if you have a proposal, have a grant in my directory, don't submit another one until your grant runs out. And they explicitly said that to my colleagues and my friends. So it might be true in certain in certain directories, may not necessarily true in others. And then the first submission I made was on the composite material, which made the decision, which made it very vague for the program director to decide whether it's a good fit for his program or he needs to transfer my proposal to another one. So it's inorganic and organic. It contains inorganic materials and organic materials. So then initially I submitted to this chemistry directory in the supramolecular, not supramolecular category, chemistry directory. But then the program manager feels like it's about polymers. So he transferred my proposal to polymers. But then the program manager contacted me and says, well, your proposal doesn't really fit in my program, but we are going to go ahead and review it. Of course, it didn't review well because most of the panel reviewers, they are polymer experts, right? So the proposal is really not a good fit. So I learned my lesson, and then I wrote a different proposal. My second submission, I just focused on inorganic materials and submitted to DMR, Division of Materials Research. in the ceramics program. And then after receiving the review, which was not bad, but then I realized that I got a lot of criticism on subjects that was not relevant to what I proposed. Because for the ceramics program in the Division of Materials Research, especially for career proposals, they don't conduct panel review. It's all ad hoc. And then, so there's a huge disadvantage if the program manager doesn't hold panel reviews on career proposals, especially that the reviewer is not expert in your area, and then he makes random comments that cannot be countered by other reviewers, right? So that's the problem. And I saw the review, and most comments about, I feel that the reviewers are from mechanical engineering or chemical engineering. They all raise those engineering questions, which certainly were certainly very far away from what I proposed to do. That, unfortunately, I don't have a chance to sort of challenge their comments. There was no panel review summary, and then the program manager couldn't really give a lot of comments besides the ad hoc review comments, right? So I tried to reach out to the program manager. Some of the program managers are not very responsive to the requests of the PIs, which was fine. And then for the third time, I decided to stay with the same program, but I changed my strategy. One thing I learned is every directory in NSF, they have workshops annually or biannually, right? And they always have the workshop reports, list all the challenges in this area of research. So I got the most recent report from a recent workshop, and they listed several challenges. I focused my proposal on addressing one of those challenges, and it turns out that if you check, I don't know whether it applies to other directories. It does apply for this DMR ceramics directory, that for each year they gave about 2 to 3 career awards, but both of them will be on the same subject. It's really interesting. Every year is focused on the same subject. 2 awardees will be writing proposals on the same subject, on the same topic. So it just happens that I chose the right topic, and I also sent out my proposals to previous career awardees in that program to review before my submission. So they gave really constructive comments. So that's how it worked. Magically.
I appreciate your perseverance through it. I think I will not be able to comment on the question of what changes I made, because I was fortunate enough to get it from the first time. Maybe I can comment on some of the things that maybe others have noted or I thought that were particularly useful in my experience, but that may be a different question, Beth. So I don't know if you'd like me to make some comments about what I found useful.
Go ahead.
So a couple of things that were noted, I think this idea of reaching out to a program officer, I've had extensive conversation, and I've had a really, a program officer who made himself very much available. So that helped me a lot with guiding even early on, sending him one pager with some research question and then having another follow-up conversation to see how the structure of my proposal is moving along was very helpful and productive. I also was able to get some samples of career awardees that were in my discipline or close to my work. So that was really, really useful. I did attend NSF webinars, which were also quite helpful in this way. What else? I had one other thing. Oh, the pilot work. I think I did also support and motivated my work through a pilot research study, a small scale kind of research that I had published. So I included that in my proposal, and I think that also may have supported the proposal in the first round.
So I received my career proposal the second time after I submitted the first time. So what I've changed, I actually changed my program. What I've learned through that process, probably one of the most important things that I learned during the second time was that even though, I mean, this is probably going to be fit into another answer to another question, which is what kind of useful information to other applicants. And that is, even if you decide that a program fits your proposal, you don't necessarily have to submit it to that program. But the most important thing that I learned from the first time that I applied to a specific program was that even though that matched very well with my proposal topic, I didn't realize that that program manager was not interested in that topic area. So the topic area that I'm interested in or I'm working on is fluid mechanics or fluid dynamics. You could think about fluid mechanics at high Reynolds number and low Reynolds number. So you have a bacteria that moves in our body, is very slow, a small scale, whereas a supersonic plane that moves really fast, turbulence, right? Even though they are both fluid mechanics, but one program manager doesn't really fund interested in lower scale or smaller scale fluid mechanics, whereas the other program, if you were to work in other subject area, then you would be really highly likely to get funded. So one thing that I learned was that this is actually not coming from my personal experience. It's coming from my conversation with the senior folks in my field, and that's very important. I think that probably if you would do it, it would be very useful. That is, sort of try to find out what is funded in that program. And if that area if the subject areas that are covered or funded or awards that have been funded in that subject in that program would overlap with what you're doing, then that's great. If not, then I don't think it's going to work out. At least it didn't work out for me for the first time. Going from first time to the second time, I slightly changed my proposal. I didn't change much of it. Sorry about that. I didn't change the technical or even the broader impact much because the first time I didn't receive much constructive comments from the program manager. I actually, believe it or not, I didn't talk to the program manager after I received the responses. But the second time, I submitted to a program, even though it was a match program, but it was a better program because I saw a lot of research areas or awards that have been made in that area, in that program that were matching my proposal, and it got funded. I mean, so aside from the proposal itself, which I didn't change much, I think the most important part was to get to know the program that you're trying to apply to. Even though even if a program is a match program for your proposal, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best program that it could apply to.
It sounds like one thing I'm hearing is the importance of working with the program officer, working with them ahead of time, submitting a one-pager to see if you're on track, could save you maybe one of those times that maybe you would get declined. So that's very important, just knowing that. And as Hadi mentioned, you can go into NSF's award search and you can see what has been funded. You can search by, I know I'll go in career : and then bring it up, and then you can do it by directorate, and you can keep going further by year and see what has most recently been awarded. That sounds like that would be key to this. Yan, did you have any other comments you wanted to add?
Yes, just following your comment. So some of the directories, some of the program managers, for example, the ceramics program, if you don't submit a one-page white paper to the program manager, she won't consider your proposal. Yeah, it's recommended, but for some of the program managers, it's a requirement. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Another thing is that when I submit my career proposal, I send my proposal to Beth and her office. So they have been really helpful to address all the aspects, non-technical, well, non-science aspects of my proposal, which I think is one of the most important thing to the eventual wording of my proposal.
You know, it seems like from what we've heard from the different people ahead of time, I wouldn't say it takes a village, but there are a lot of different resources that you can tap into around campus and maybe outside of FSU from your peers. Tell me, what are all the things you did to get your proposal in the shape it was? What kind of tools did you use when you were putting your proposals together? Sonia, do you want to start?
Sure. So I guess, yeah, that would be one difference also between my first try and my second try. The first time I worked on my proposal too late. And even though I had been thinking about it for a long time, I think I didn't allow myself enough time to get a lot of valuable feedback on it. Whereas the second time I did have the time to ask for feedback that was more in depth. So I did send my proposal to some people in my field, including my former PhD advisor, and he was very helpful as well, and very, very happy to help. So that was one thing that was very, very useful. As somebody else mentioned, like getting feedback from researchers in your field. I think maybe Lama mentioned that. I think that's very, very important because they have a better knowledge of the field, and they have experience with getting grants funded, and they will be able to spot things that look a little off or that don't make sense in the narrative and the flow of your proposal. So I think, the way that you're introducing the research that you're proposing and things like that might not make a lot of sense. So just relying on experts in your area for feedback, I think that was very helpful. Then I also have very helpful colleagues in my department that are my senior colleagues are always very eager to help on giving feedback for proposals for assistant professors. So that was also very helpful. I also attended the NSF workshop that you are attending right now at FSU. And I also mentioned the one that is specific to the directorate to which I applied, which I didn't attend the first year, but I did get some, extra information about how to tailor my proposal to that particular directorate. Then, whatever I could find online about writing good proposals. But I think what helped also a lot was, again, what somebody already mentioned, getting examples of proposals in my field. And I was lucky enough to get examples of career proposals that were funded in the previous 2 years. So that was extremely helpful to know how to structure my proposal the second time.
I think it goes without saying that any proposal needs to have a strong motivation and a clear plan. So in terms of career, I think at least for me, the unique aspect was the education component. And I think that required a perspective shift from other science research proposals I've prepared. And I think the idea that you want to have is you want to approach it with the same method as your research. You need to show that there's a need for something. You need to justify it. You need to have a plan for what you're going to do. And another thing that I think can be weak in a number of proposals is assessment, both of the education plans and your research outcomes. How will you assess whether you've succeeded? I also reviewed career proposals, and some weaknesses that I noticed in some of them were that, some of them were preparing things for high school teachers, science curricula for high school teachers. And there, I think, something I wanted to see was, are they meeting a need? Do the state science standards say that you should be teaching the thing that you want to do? Do you have a commitment from your partner to come into their classroom and do something? How are you going to determine whether anybody wants to use the education materials that you plan to produce? If you're going to do community engagement, how are you going to get people to show up? So there's a variety of sort of things. You can't just say that we're going to do this great activity. You need to show why that great activity is important, and how you're going to make it work. With that said, the education plans need to be outside of your regular faculty expectations, but they don't need to be really extreme. The things that I proposed in my education plan were to broaden participation to underrepresented groups by hiring undergraduates for research, to introduce more active learning into classes that I teach, to do more hands-on data analysis in graduate classes, to encourage some events with interdisciplinary conversations, and some public outreach to some very specific communities that would be interested in the topics that I was working on. So none of those are really completely new ideas of way to do education. But I motivated all of them, and I had a plan for how I was going to do them and assess whether they had succeeded. So again, I think the bottom line is you need to approach the education plan with the same rigor that you approach your research plan, but it doesn't need to take over your activities for the 5 years that you are doing your career work. The other piece of advice I have on education plans, and what I've seen work really well in proposals that I've reviewed, is to use partnerships. You should team up with other people to make whatever activities you plan for your education more feasible. So for me, that was teaming up with some other events that are happening in Tallahassee, to work with education professionals. If you need to survey people to determine whether your education activities worked or whether they liked them, get somebody who's an expert in doing surveys to help you out. That's going to, or get people who are involved in science education outreach involved. You don't have to do all of the education activities yourself. Just like you might hire a graduate research assistant to do research, you should consider requesting funds for collaborators to help with your education plan. And so you should request a budget for your education activities. They should be of a scope that requires funding to accomplish.
I totally agree with Chris' suggestions and opinions on the educational plan. Definitely need to find out suitable platforms on campus, partners beyond campus that you can integrate into your educational component of your career proposal. Another thing is that you need to allocate money to your educational plan. I was on the review panel for some career proposals, and then some of the panelists will say, well, this proposal is not serious about the educational component because it allocates $0 to the effort. Right? So if you propose to have an event or to sponsor some undergraduate student research, then you need to have the budget, have it shown in your budget. So I have a few steps I often follow when I write proposals. So first, I often check out as Sonia mentioned, the workshops, right? So every program has their annual workshops. It's great to attend those workshops to learn what are the challenges, what are the focus of research in this area. And if you cannot attend those workshops, they often have workshop reports posted on the website. You can find those reports and read them. Those are is super helpful. And then once you decide what you want to write about, and you write a page of white paper, and then send it to your program manager for discussion. She or he will say, well, this is not a suitable topic for my category. Maybe you can contact this program manager for another discussion. She will say, well, we have funded this topic in the previous years. Maybe you can find something else to write about, and we can talk again. Right? So she often will give very useful suggestions on the topic you want to propose. And then once you have decided on the topic, outline your proposal, give a rough draft. And then I often contact the reviewers before I finish the full draft, because I need to give people, an advanced warning that I'm sending my proposal their way for review. So I contact the reviewers, for example, the previous awardees in that category that you're submitting your proposal to, non-experts, right? For example, I contact the science writer at MagLab, Kristen. She often writes news release on my work, so she knows my science. So I said, Kristen, do you mind reading my proposal? Give me some suggestions. She's an excellent writer. She doesn't completely know the technical part of the science part of the proposal, but she gives excellent advice on how to improve the readability for general audience, because your reviewers are not necessarily all experts in your focused discipline of research. So it's good to be able to write your proposal in a way that most of the science people understand it. And then I often send my proposals to Beth and then her office for advice before submitting it. They have been really helpful to catch errors about the missing requirements and grammatical errors as well. For the educational plan, I mentioned a few things about it. One thing is that one advice I got from my colleague is that you can type in on different platforms on campus, and then Beth and her office has organized wonderful events to discuss all the resources to write your writing your education component. Right? I don't know whether Beth there's another workshop this year to talk about the resources available for educational component of the career proposal. I find it very useful, but just keep that in mind that you're not to say you say because it has to be an integrated educational plan in your proposal. You can't say I'm gonna participate in this REU program from MagLab. I'm going to participate in the Sci-Fi Girls program in MagLab, because you are only part of other people's outreach activities or education plan. But what you want to do is you say, I have this plan. I want to educate the students from high school, undergraduate, graduate, postdoc, right? But then you recruit participants from these programs, right? So if I want to educate undergraduate researchers using my science, then I will recruit undergraduate students from this REU program, or from the high school student from the Sci-Fi Girl program at MagLab. Yeah, so that's the you have to have your own complete education plan rather than being part of another person's outreach activity.
Yeah, I would say that I think you can build on other activities. If you had a module that you were building for one of these summer camps run at the MagLab, I think that would be perfect.
I agree with you, Chris, but it
needs to be yours.
It's a module, right? So you can't say that I'm putting pieces. I'm
sure.
putting one. Yeah. So that's what I meant. You have to have a sort of plan, an integrated module, an integrated component of your education plan.
some great points all around. So I'm going to try to kind of add some new things, maybe things that have not been said already about career in particular. So we talked about the importance of integrating research with education. And one other thing that is important for the career grant is to make a case that this support that you're going to get is going to help you establish yourself as a scholar in the field, and it's going to be foundational for work that is to come. So thinking carefully about how making that case is important, and that would, I felt kind of writing this career grant was a little bit a self-reflective journey and projection journey into my future. So thinking about how the different pieces are coming together and how you're going to make a case that this will provide the foundational work for you to establish yourself and continue this line of work is important. So that's one thing. The second thing I will say, yes, it does take a village, definitely. And so it is very important for me, at least I'm somebody who doesn't do things quickly very well. So I need lots of time. So I started early. I did reach out to people to talk with them. I had lots of, so we talked about the importance of working and having samples from people from within your field, but I also did have lots of conversation with people who are not in my field, or even people who are not in academia altogether. So, you know, friends, partner, so that I try out the ideas and see, like, is that holding for you? Am I reaching broader to my, small niche or jargony way of talking? How can I make ideas more compelling for a larger audience? So I found those conversations to be helpful, because also they pushed me to revise certain ideas or find holes in my argument as I tried to talk about my ideas in a very kind of colloquial way. The other thing I will say is, well, and I will say in those conversations, it's not only that I had those informal conversations, I did also have lots of support from my wonderful department, even, senior colleagues willing to read drafts and multiple drafts, or even early drafts and parts of drafts. So I did have lots of conversations with my Office of Research. We have an Office of Research in the College of Education, in addition to the Office of Research at FSU, and both offices were just wonderful. Working closely with an editor in the Office of Research in the College of Education was fantastic. I think it really, really helped with putting together the proposal. But that needed planning ahead of time, and that worked for me because I was having those ideas early on, so I had the luxury of time in this case. And I also did serve on an NSF panel. It wasn't a career panel, but it was, and I've never served on a career, I don't know how those work, but I did serve on an NSF panel within the same program that I applied to. So that was very helpful ahead of time, so that I became aware of things that I may not have even thought about that would be things that reviewers will look for or scrutinize in a proposal.
So I guess the downside of being the last person is that a lot of things that you wanted to mention have been already covered. And I wholeheartedly agree with all the comments made by the panelists. Maybe I can add a couple of other things, maybe not as important as the other items that were brought up. But going back to knowing your audience, who's going to be your audience? Who's going to be probably sitting in your career panel? Are most probably who have been funded recently or in the past few years, meaning that the senior people in your field. So one thing that I kind of did, aside from sending my proposal to senior people in the field and getting their feedback, which were very useful, I ended up inviting them to the department, to my department graduate seminar series, so that they could come in here and would get to know me, would get to see my research. And that's how I can build up my network and get connected and see people, and people would see me. So I think that was a really valuable experience or things that I've done in the past. And it was really wonderful because my department was supporting, and in 1 or 2 semesters, they essentially gave me the whole semester to invite a lot of people to the department as a graduate seminar series of speakers. So if you have that opportunity, I would encourage you to do the same thing so that people who may be possibly in your panel who have been funded in that program recently then would get to see your research and would probably give you some really good feedback that they could use to improve your proposal at least, or even to improve it or tackle it from a different angle that is somewhat more desirable to the community.
Thank you, Hadi. And since you've been last all of these questions, you get to be first this time. There was a question that came through the chat, and Sonia was kind enough to answer from her perspective, but I thought I would ask it to the others. And let me also welcome Christian Bleiholder, who is now taking the place of Yan Yan. So he will come into this loop too. So you will be the last person to answer this question. The question is, what kind of help from the department is considered standard, and what kind of departmental support would be considered as a weakness?
As a weakness, well, the department support, one of the most important documents that need to accompany your application is the chair letter. Chair letter is very important because it would essentially lay out the department support for the faculty, and there are a couple of items that could be included in that letter, including why do they think this idea, for example, if you're working on a research area that has a potential to be integrated with other institutions or other facilities that could utilize other facilities already existing in the university, that would be useful. For example, I just want to give you a particular example, is that MagLab here is one of the unique facilities that we have in the US. If you could possibly find out the connection between your research and some unique facilities that are out there on campus, that would be helpful. And that could be sort of attenuated. That could be, well, amplified in the chair letter, that this candidate is in a unique position to make a huge difference. So in terms of the support from the department, I think that comes from the chair letter. And then as mentioned by other panelists, I think senior faculties in the department are really good resources, great resources, because I would suppose that probably some of them have had experience with the career panel, or even have been in discussion with the career panelists, and could provide you with a lot more useful feedback.
I do think that the framing of the letter helps a lot, as Hadi was mentioning. And also when I asked for a course release, and that was part of the budget for the plan. So having the support of the chair, and the chair coming and saying, I'm going to commit the resources as described in the grant, and I'm going to marshal all resources to support the scholar in their pursuit, is really important. But I don't have any specific things to note with regards to what would make a letter weak. I don't have the experience to speak to that.
I would add, I don't know that it's expected that there's any either funding support or not necessary that there's teaching release or other time support. Of course, that would be very nice. I didn't get that from my department. I got a very nice letter saying that my goals were aligned with the department's goals, but there was no material support. So that's not essential, at least not in my area.
I mean, I do agree with the fact that the letter, I mean, the first page of my support letter from the department chair was all about framing it, like, and kind of explaining how they're believing in me pretty much, and I have a record that is growing and it's strong, and basically kind of putting me in the best light that my department chair could put me in. And after that, the second page of the letter focused on specifics on how the department would support me towards building my career.
And Christian, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Beth. So Beth, this is just about the letter, or generally about support from the department or weaknesses?
I think it could be both.
Okay. So I don't know about the letter, what I could add. And I personally didn't think of the letter too much. I thought it was just a standard thing that had to be submitted as part of the award package. I think from the reviews themselves, I think what I realized is the question really that the reviewers would ask is if it's really possible to do the work at the school, at the department, if I have the resources, if I have the right environment to do the work. And if you don't, that would be considered a strong weakness.
If I may ask Ted Baker, because he was a program director, are you aware of anything that would make the letter weak?
I've seen weak letters. I'm not so as much what it would put into it this week as if the letter looks like it's boilerplate. If it only minimally covers the required questions, and in particular, if it doesn't provide any supporting detail. Let me see if I don't have the thing open right now, but if I remember right, there's a list of items that they ask you the letter to cover. And some of them are straightforward, like eligibility for the grant. But there's other questions there about how your proposal fits in with the department's mission, the department's goals for you as a faculty member when they hired you, the mentoring that the department's going to provide you, departmental resources. It's important that the department letter flesh out those by providing supporting details. You can't just say, yes, we are going to mentor. Say who's going to mentor and how. Yes, we'll provide resources. That's not enough. They really should say, oh, I see the proposal promised to develop a new course, and I'm, as department chair, promised that I will assign the faculty member to teach that course at least 2 or 3 times in the next 5 years. So they'll have an opportunity to develop the course. So I think it's important that the chair's letter specifically address elements of the proposal that require the department's support and promise the resources and other support that the proposal writer is expecting.
Thanks, Ted.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ted. So, Christian, we're going to start with you this time and work our way back. This is some people go for career awards and some people opt not to. What do you think? Has there been any advantages of securing a career award that you've noticed since you've gotten it?
I would say that it's easier to get a career award than a regular NSF award because you're pretty much competing with people in your peer, in your own group. And I think the mistakes that you're going to make, a lot of them are going to be made by your competitors. Versus when you apply to regular NSF programs, then you compete with full professors who are much more data, they have more experience writing grants. So I would say, don't miss out on the opportunity. I would say that the one advantage over regular NSF grants is that it has 5 years time, so you're a bit more flexible how you spend it. Regulars are about 3 years.
Definitely the 5-year sense of, security that you have those 5 years to do something that you're passionate about is just lovely. And I think I mentioned this idea before, is that one thing about the career grant is that it gives you an opportunity to really reflect about who you are as a scholar, as a researcher, the kind of work you want to do and be known for. It is a kind of a solo effort in that way because it's yours, and it's kind of tracing a trajectory for your future. So there are affordances to it at this level. I think it helped me even think about what case can I make for my promotion and tenure. So it is something that conceptually is very helpful in this way. I also think that more kind of the things I'm noticing is that I've been contacted by many more people who came across my award and want to chat either about the content or have research interests around the same content, or just want to have, samples, or want to have discussed that they want to do their career. So it gave me opportunities to connect with lots of other people, either around similar interests or early on in their career, and getting to know what they're up to was quite interesting. I've got also invited, and I cannot tell whether it's the career award or something else, but I was invited to serve on, after the award, I got a number of invitations to serve on advisory boards in reference to, or people kind of recognize the work that I do there that could be relevant to the work that they do there. So it has its affordances, some of which may be also affordances of other grants, but in the sense of having a 5-year trajectory and developing yourself in this way is really neat.
I would like to add to that in general, I think the Career Award is seen, I mean, even though it is easier to get in terms of percentages, of funded proposals, it's easier to get than a regular proposal. I mean, at least a small proposal that I know of. It's seen as more prestigious, at least, for early career researchers, is like one of the top, one of the most prestigious awards that you can get. So it does a lot for your case for tenure, and just for your CV in general, and for recognition as a promising and developing scholar that will likely have a good career in the field.
I think perhaps the reason not to do the career would be, well, you've got to do the education part. So if you aren't really convinced that it's what you want to do, if you're adding that in as a second thought to your proposal, that might be an indication that maybe you don't want to invest as much time in this as will be required if you are successful.
I think it requires a, compared to a regular NSF proposal, a career proposal would require you spending more time and effort projecting yourself, because as you know, as you've already been thinking, most of you have been thinking about, is that the career award is not something that is not a sole project that you finish off after 3 years and you move on, you go to a different project. No, it's actually a stepping stone towards your future. So you have to make a strong case that, okay, I'm going to be the promising leader in the future, and that's how I'm going to start with. And this is the vision that I see in this proposal. So in that sense, I think even though it's kind of easier, statistically speaking, than getting a regular proposal awarded, but it requires a huge amount of time and effort putting things in the context and convincing people that you're going to be a good candidate to moving forward.
As an additional incentive to apply, for the NSF career at FSU is the extra incentive you get to your salary if you get that, which you do not get with regular NSF grants. So you get I think it's $5,000 added to your salary. So, I mean, that in itself, it's extra bonus in addition to everything else that was said, which obviously should not be your main motivation, but it's a little nice extra.
It doesn't hurt, and it's not, and you didn't say it was, but it's not a bonus that is actually added to your baseline salary. So as a percentage goes up, say if once you get tenure, that your base has now changed. So that is nice, not a reason to do it, but definitely a nice, I enjoy being able to contact the office to let people know that here's another person who's got a career award so they can start working on your paperwork. So, okay, I have one last question of all of you. If you could only give somebody one piece of advice about the career award, what would that one piece of advice be?
Propose something or prepare your proposal in a way that show that you're a unique person to do something that is going to make a huge impact, or is going to have a lasting impact on the community. That's how you could set yourself aside from other people. If you just say, okay, I'm going to have this proposal and this is going to be the project, it's going to be similar to a regular NSF proposal. 3 years, 5 years, and then that's the end of it. No, you have to make yourself, it's just a marketing, I suppose. It's related to marketing. You have to market yourself such that you're different. You have a unique capability. You have identified the very important problem, and you're the one who can resolve that issue, or who can explore that problem that nobody else can do. So in essence, you have to show that why this problem is important, why you are the one who can answer those questions.
I could go next, but I have 3 things in mind that I can't decide which one is more important. So I'll just tie them all in one sentence. So that would be start early, get feedback, and get preliminary results. And I think a combination of this of these 3 things will make it a lot more likely for you to be successful.
One thing, I love how you put them together, Sonia. These were key things, I guess, in my experience. But I'll add, have conversations with others, as many as you can, and consider that, you're proposing work that others will also see as important. So you're conversing with the field, you're addressing something that others would also understand that the need and the pressing need for attending to it. So make your case in this way.
Getting a lot of letters of support from other people that you'll be collaborating with can be a helpful way of showing your stature within your research community. And if you have letters of collaboration from other prominent people or major projects that you will be doing something related to, that's a nice way of enhancing your stature.
And again, something you don't want to wait until the last minute to collect.
Can I just warn you, though, be careful. A letter of collaboration can be a cause for return without review if it doesn't fit the NSF requirements. Excess letters are a risk. The letter, it has to be a very specific format, and it has to refer to what it says in the proposal that person specifically promised to do, which means whoever writes the letter has to see your proposal before they write the letter. That's a timing problem.
Thank you. I was referring to people that I was actually working with, but are also prominent in their field. But thank you.
Christian?
I would say be bold in your ideas and be rigorous in the narrative so that you can show that you can actually accomplish these ideas and have the data to support it.
Based on my conversation that I had with other folks who have reviewed proposals and career proposals, I think the first 2 or 3 pages of your proposal is very important. If you can make a strong case in the 3 pages of your proposal, some people would say even the first and first 2 pages of the proposal, then you have a chance grabbing reviewers' attention to go along and read through your proposal with interest. If you don't do a good job in grabbing their attention in the first few pages, first 2 or 3 pages, then they would start looking for weaknesses and they would just remember the weaknesses. Very important, make a very strong case in the first 2 or 3 pages, even if you need to put your preliminary data in the first few pages. That's at least my personal experience. That would probably help a lot in terms of getting at least people sort of interestingly reading your proposal, otherwise they're going to just see this, because at the same time they would have to read at least 10 or maybe dozens of proposals. So you have to somehow find a way to attract their attention to your proposal, to your ideas.
Thank you, Hadi, for mentioning that. That's a very good point and is true not just for career, but any proposal. If you can't grab the attention of your readers in the first page or 2, selling them after that is going to be extremely difficult to achieve. So thank you for mentioning that. I don't see that we have any other questions. So let me just take this time to thank our awardee panel so much for participating today. I've heard so many good comments throughout the day from different folks that I really hope will be helpful to everybody here who's going to apply this year or maybe even next year. So thank you all for participating. And if you, again, have any questions about this, or if we can help you secure information you cannot find that would be helpful for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at bhodges@fsu.edu. I hope everyone has a lovely evening and good luck on your proposal writing.